When my husband died, his millionaire boss called me urgently. "Ma'am, I found something. Come to my office right now. Don't tell your son or daughter-in-law anything, you could be in danger." When I arrived, I froze seeing who was at the door. I never imagined that after 45 years of marriage, I would feel like a stranger in my own life. There I was, sitting in the front pew at Elijah's funeral, while my son Marcus and daughter-in-law Kira handled every decision as if I didn't exist. "Mama, just leave this to us. You just stay calm," Marcus had said that morning with the condescending tone he had developed over the years, Kira nodding beside him with her familiar false smile. I stayed quiet, lacking the strength to argue. Elijah had died suddenly of a heart attack just 3 days earlier. One moment he was planting the spring garden over breakfast. The next I found him collapsed in the garage. At the community church, everyone approached Marcus and Kira with condolences, treating them as though they were the widowed ones, while I was just the fragile 68-year-old to be shielded from trauma. That word hurt more than any empty condolence, for Elijah had never seen me as fragile. I was his partner, his equal. But ever since Marcus married Kira 5 years ago, everything had changed. During the service, I noticed Marcus seemed more relieved than grief-stricken, responding to condolences with an almost indifferent composure, while Kira's tears felt calculated, her expression a careful performance. After the burial, at the home Elijah and I had shared for so many years, Kira organized the lunch as if it were her house. Sitting in my favorite chair by the window, I watched her run everything. "Lena, you should go rest," she suggested, offering me a cup of tea I hadn't requested. "I'm fine right here," I replied, though my voice was weaker than intended. Marcus then sat across from me, suggesting that I shouldn't stay in the house alone and that retirement communities would be safer. My blood ran cold. "I am not going to any nursing home," I declared, gathering unexpected strength. Kira squeezed my hand, insisting these were elegant senior living facilities, yet my resolve began to crumble under their pitying gazes. The conversation was interrupted by a phone call. Marcus answered, returning looking annoyed. It was someone from Dad's office. "They wanted to talk to you about some paperwork." Something in his tone unsettled me. "Marcus, your father worked there for 30 years. I have a right to hear this." He brushed it off. That night, alone in the bed I had shared with Elijah for decades, the house silent and heavy with memories, my phone rang again. "Mrs. Lena Odom?" a man's voice said. "I'm Theodore Vance, your husband's boss at Sterling and Grant Financial." "Ma'am, I am so sorry for your loss." Elijah was extraordinary, and everyone valued him. My heart pounded as he continued, "I need to see you urgently. There's something important about your husband's last few months you must know, but you cannot tell your son or daughter-in-law." The line cut off, leaving me trembling, realizing Elijah had anticipated his death and trusted me alone with this secret. The next morning, I awoke with a determination I hadn't felt in months, dressing in the navy blue suit Elijah always praised. When Marcus called, suggesting I stay with them, I insisted I had errands to run. Driving downtown with clenched hands, I approached the towering Sterling and Grant Financial building, ready to uncover the truth Elijah had left solely for me. The towering Sterling and Grant Financial building had always intimidated me, and Elijah had worked on the 15th floor in the internal audit department. The receptionist guided me to the executive floor, a place I had never set foot in before. Theodore Vance's office was impressive, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, mahogany furniture, and an undeniable aura of power. Theodore himself, a man of about 55 with perfectly styled gray hair and an expensive suit, stood as I entered, genuine concern in his eyes. "Mrs. Odom, thank you for coming. Please have a seat," he said. Settling into a leather chair, I felt completely out of my element. "First of all, I want you to know your husband was one of our most valued employees. In 30 years, never a complaint about his work," he began. I murmured my thanks, sensing the gravity behind his words. Theo retrieved a thick folder and placed it before me. During the last 6 months of his life, Elijah came to me with specific concerns about his family. My heart sank. Elijah feared that Marcus and Kira were manipulating him to alter his will and gain control over finances. Theo showed me photocopies of partially completed legal documents, all signed by Elijah but crossed out, evidence of the pressure Marcus had applied. Over the past year, I recalled their whispered conversations and subtle manipulations whenever I was in the room. Theo continued, revealing that Kira had been suggesting I was confused, forgetting things, and needed closer supervision, a claim utterly false. Elijah had meticulously documented every conversation, every pressure, and every attempt to undermine me. Tears threatened to fall as I asked why he hadn't told me sooner. He had wanted to protect me until he was certain. Suddenly, a loud knock startled us. Marcus and Kira entered, expressions a mix of surprise and something darker. Marcus questioned my presence, and Kira's familiar condescending smile masked her intent. Theo calmly reminded them this was a private conversation. They dismissed it, claiming I was fragile and incapable of making important decisions alone. My indignation flared. I was 68, not a child. Marcus's patronizing tone and their exchanged glances mirrored those of the funeral, heavy with hidden meaning. I turned to the closed folder, knowing it contained truths that would shatter everything. "Theo," I said deliberately, "could you give me a few minutes alone with my son and daughter-in-law?" He nodded and left. As the door closed, Marcus visibly relaxed, warning me about the manipulative power of money. Kira mentioned Elijah's life insurance and savings, a chilling confirmation of the stakes involved. My stomach turned cold. How could they know these details? Marcus awkwardly admitted that Elijah had casually mentioned it months ago, ensuring I would be taken care of, yet he had never shared these conversations with me. The silence stretched between us, broken only by a sound that froze my world, a cough, faint but deliberate. The moment that unmistakable cough echoed through the room, all three of us turned toward the private bathroom attached to Theo's office. The door creaked open slowly, and the figure that stepped out made my heart stop before exploding into a frantic, painful rhythm. Elijah, my husband, the man I had buried only 4 days ago, stood there alive, breathing, and looking at me with a mixture of love and apology. "Hello, Lena," he whispered. I'm not sure if I screamed, but the world tilted violently, and if Elijah hadn't rushed forward, I would have fallen from the chair. What? How? I murmured as my trembling hands touched his face to make sure he was real. Behind us, Kira gasped and Marcus muttered something under his breath. Elijah steadied me with the same hands that had comforted me for 45 years. "I'm so sorry, my love." But this was the only way. The only way to what? I asked, though a part of me already knew. Elijah's eyes hardened as he looked at Marcus and Kira. "The only way to protect you from them." Marcus spluttered, insisting it was impossible. There had been a funeral, a death certificate. Elijah explained calmly that the certificate had been falsified with the help of a discreet doctor and a funeral director, and that Theo had helped orchestrate the entire plan. When I whispered why, Elijah looked at me gently before turning back to them. "Because I found out what you were planning." Kira paled, denying everything, but Elijah opened Theo's folder and laid out printed emails, texts, and recorded conversations. He read aloud Marcus's message about me, showing signs of dementia, and Kira agreeing that the sooner the better, mentioning the value of our house and retirement savings. I felt the breath leave my body as I realized they had been planning to declare me incompetent and take everything. Marcus insisted it was taken out of context, but Elijah cut him off, reminding them they had been trying to gain control of my life, put me in an institution, and sell our home. Kira snapped, calling Elijah's actions criminal, but he stayed calm, saying he would face consequences after revealing the truth. He then told me that for 8 months Marcus and Kira had been visiting him while I wasn't around, pretending to worry about us, while slowly planting the idea that I was losing my mind and needed supervision. I looked at my son, the child I had raised, loved, and protected, but his eyes hardened as he spoke about financial pressures. Elijah revealed the real reason. Marcus had over $150,000 in gambling debt, and Kira had opened credit cards in my name without my knowledge. My world shook again. Elijah detailed how she had accumulated over $10,000 in debt using my identity. Kira exploded, trying to drag me away and calling Elijah delusional, but I finally saw everything clearly: their sudden concern, their attempts to control my decisions, and their rush to push me into legal arrangements after the funeral. "I'm not going anywhere," I said firmly, telling them to leave. Marcus's expression twisted into something dark, no longer my worried son, but a stranger who had just lost access to everything he had been counting on. Elijah helped me to the sofa as Theo returned, and the two of them stood by the door like animals deciding whether to flee or attack. Elijah knelt in front of me and said softly, "There's more you need to know." My mind struggled to absorb the reality: my husband alive, my children plotting, but something in Elijah's face told me the truth was even darker. Theo opened another section of the folder and laid out photographs taken by the investigator. Marcus entering a casino, sitting at a poker table betting unimaginable amounts, and Kira trying on an expensive necklace. Elijah confronted them with details: Marcus gambling $25,000 here in one night, Kira buying a $4,000 necklace using a credit card under my name. Theo even produced the receipt. My heart snapped when Kira admitted they were under pressure and needed temporary help. Elijah revealed that the fraud had been ongoing for a year and a half, with unauthorized withdrawals from my savings and intercepted bank correspondence. Elijah reminded me how Kira had offered to help with the mail, pretending to make things easier for me. But Elijah said there was something worse. Theo pulled out a small voice recorder and played a phone call, Marcus's voice saying they needed to speed up the timeline because Elijah was asking too many questions and I wasn't acting confused enough. Kira talked about having fake documents ready and the plan to institutionalize me so they could sell the house immediately. Then came the line that shattered me. Elijah isn't going to be a problem for much longer. Elijah paused the recording and told me it was from 3 weeks before his death. I asked Marcus what he meant, but he insisted it was misinterpreted, claiming concern for Elijah's health. Elijah asked sharply if they were just waiting for him to die naturally, but Kira stepped forward, dropping all pretenses, saying they were only planning ahead for my future care. I repeated her words, planning ahead or speeding up the process. Theo then pulled out a medical report and warned me it would be the hardest thing too. The medical report sat in front of me, and I read the lines with growing horror. Patient shows clear signs of early dementia, episodes of confusion, short-term memory loss, disorientation. Evaluation for full-time care recommended. This is a lie, I whispered, my voice barely audible. I had never seen Dr. Silas Thorne. I didn't recognize the name. Elijah explained he was Kira's doctor, willing to sign a false diagnosis for $10,000. I looked at Kira, the woman I had called my daughter for 5 years, and saw panic in her eyes for the first time. You paid a doctor to say I have dementia? I asked. You have to understand, we were trying to protect you, she said. Protect me from what? I cried, my own voice strong and trembling. Marcus shouted, From yourself, Mama, you're old. Your mind isn't what it used to be. Kara and I can see things you can't see. Elijah stepped between us. Lena has no mental problems. The only problem is that you've been gaslighted by 2 people you trusted for over a year, made to question your own reality so they could steal your money and house. Gaslighting? I asked. Theo explained it was psychological manipulation to make someone doubt their perception of reality. Elijah held my hands. Remember when you couldn't find your car keys and Kara suggested it was your memory? I nodded, recalling the distress. We found them in Kira's purse, he said softly. And the blood pressure medication you misplaced? It was in Marcus's car. One by one, Elijah revealed all the moments I had believed to be lapses in my memory, the missing purse, being late to appointments, forgotten conversations. They had all been orchestrated to make me appear incompetent. For months, Elijah said, they systematically tried to make you doubt yourself, preparing to declare you incompetent. I looked at Marcus and Kira, the 2 people I had loved most. Why? I whispered. We're family, Kira laughed, bitter and cold. Family? Lena? You and Elijah have been obstacles since the day we married, sitting in this huge house, accumulating money while we struggle every month. You never asked us for help, I said. We wanted what's rightfully ours, Marcus shot back. What's rightfully yours? We are your family. That house should be ours. That money should be ours. You're going to die soon anyway, Marcus spat. The silence was deafening. I realized I had lost my son forever. The person before me was a stranger using my love against me. But for the first time in over a year, my mind was clear. I wasn't confused. I had been a victim of a cruel conspiracy. The following days were an emotional roller coaster. Elijah stayed at a discreet hotel while Theo helped navigate the legal complications of his resurrection. I returned home, finally feeling free. Marcus and Kira left the office in shock, then showed up at my door 48 hours later. Watching from the window, I saw Marcus approach with that familiar determination of childhood mischief, Kira trailing, but with a new strategy. I opened the door before they rang. "Hello, Mama," Marcus said, his voice controlled. "Marcus, Kira?" I responded coldly. "Can we come in?" Kira asked. I let them in, but did not invite them to sit. The living room, once a place of joy, now felt like a battlefield. "Mama, we've been thinking about the office incident," Marcus began cautiously. Kira added, "Lena, there are misunderstandings. Everything we did was with the best intentions." "Best intentions?" I repeated, bitterly. "Like using my name to open credit cards?" Marcus defended himself, saying they were for emergencies like a $4,000 necklace. Kira sighed, admitting a mistake, but citing pressure from debts and expenses. "Your debts are not my responsibility," I said firmly. Marcus shifted tactics. "Mama, Dad is manipulating you. Doesn't it seem strange he'd fake his own death? The kind of man who protects his wife from a son planning to steal from her," Elijah answered. Marcus exploded, insisting the house and money would eventually be theirs, and they were only trying to speed up the process due to their needs. The brutal honesty hit me like a blow. "You've been waiting for Elijah and me to die so you could have our money," I said. Kira tried to justify it as planning for the future, but I reminded her families do not declare parents incompetent using false medical diagnoses. Kira paled, admitting the $10,000 paid for the precaution. Marcus showed signs of impatience. "Mama, you've become paranoid. Dad's filling your head with crazy ideas." "Crazy ideas," I repeated, "like living in my home without anyone trying to declare me insane." "No one is trying to declare you crazy," Marcus yelled. I picked up the phone, dialing a memorized number. "What are you doing?" Kira asked. "Calling Elijah," I replied. "He should be here." Marcus protested, but it was too late. 20 minutes later, Elijah arrived, calm yet commanding, instantly intensifying the tension. "Marcus, Kira," he said neutrally. "Dad," Marcus said, "we need to resolve this as a family." Elijah sat beside me, holding my hand. Kira assumed a vulnerable posture, trying to play the part. "Elijah, I know it looks bad, but we were desperate," Kira started. "Explain the desperation," Elijah prompted. Marcus rushed out his rehearsed explanation. Debts piled faster than expected. The casino, failed attempts to win money. "So you decided to rob your parents?" Elijah asked. "It's not robbing," Marcus shouted. "You have more than you could ever spend. That house is too big." "We were just accelerating the inheritance by declaring me incompetent?" I asked. Kira cried fake tears, as always. "We never wanted to hurt you, just ensure you were cared for and could pay our debts," she said. "By stealing my money and planning to institutionalize me?" I said. "The Magnolia place is very nice." "You'd have been comfortable," Marcus said. "Against my will. You would have adapted," Kira murmured. Silence. Elijah stood slowly. "Marcus, Listen carefully. Your mother and I have decided you are no longer part of our lives. We don't want to see or hear from you, and you will have no access to our finances or property." Marcus leapt up. "You can't do that. I'm your son." "You are my biological son," Elijah corrected. "But you stopped being my family the day you prioritized our deaths over our lives." Kira also stood, crying abandoned, insisting it was ridiculous. "Family?" I echoed, standing. "Family doesn't steal, gaslight, or count the days until you die for money." Marcus's face shifted, and he said reluctantly, "Maybe you're right, Mama. Maybe this is better for everyone." I was tired of pretending I cared when I only wanted you out of the way. The word struck me like a slap, but also liberated me. I said simply, "Leave. Take your things and go." "Gladly," Marcus replied. "But this doesn't end here. We'll fight this. We'll prove Dad faked his death and that you're not competent." Elijah smiled, not kindly. "Go ahead. And when you do, explain to the judge why you plan to declare your mother incompetent with fake documents. He'll be very interested." Marcus and Kira exchanged panicked glances, their fear clear. They left, and I realized they had no exit strategy. "This doesn't end here," Marcus muttered, his voice now hollow. "Yes, it does," I said firmly. I watched them leave, knowing it would probably be the last time I would see my son. I should have felt sadness, but all I felt was deep, clean relief. For the first time in over a year, I was free. 6 months later, I sit on the porch of our new home, watching Elijah plant roses in the garden he had always dreamed of. We moved to a small town called Redwood Springs, 3 hours away, where no one knows our story, and we can simply be a retired couple enjoying our golden years. The transition was not easy. In the first few weeks, I often woke before dawn, wondering if we had done the right thing. Cutting off Marcus completely felt like amputating a part of myself, no matter how infected it was. But Elijah constantly reminded me, "My love, you cannot save someone who is willing to destroy you." Theo had helped us manage the legal complications. Falsifying the death certificate resulted in some fines and community service for Elijah, but when the evidence of Marcus and Kira's conspiracy was presented, the judge was surprisingly sympathetic. "I've seen many cases of elder financial abuse," he said, "but rarely one as systematic and cruel as this." Marcus and Kira tried to fight legally, but their case collapsed when the district attorney investigated the fraudulent credit cards and false medical documents. In the end, they faced criminal charges. Marcus served 18 months probation for financial fraud, and Kira lost her nursing license. They divorced 6 weeks later, blaming each other for dragging themselves into desperation. I felt no satisfaction, only a strange sense of closure, like finishing a disturbing book and finally setting it aside. We sold the big house, too full of complicated memories, and bought this smaller home in Redwood Springs, with enough land for Elijah's garden and a view of the mountains that made every sunrise feel like a gift. We paid off all the debts Marcus and Kira had accumulated in our names, not out of obligation, but to start this new phase completely clean. One evening, I asked Elijah if he thought Marcus would ever understand what he did. He stopped chopping vegetables and looked at me with the same wise eyes that had made me fall in love with him 46 years ago. I don't know, my love, but it is no longer our responsibility to teach him, he said, and I realized the hardest lesson I had learned. Some adults choose paths their parents cannot follow, and sometimes the truest love is knowing when to let them go. We made new friends. Brenda and George next door shared how they had cut ties with their sane years ago to save their marriage and sanity, which helped me understand we were not alone. That morning, Elijah brought me coffee in bed, and I noticed a letter on the knitstand. It was from Marcus. My heart stopped, and with trembling hands, I opened it. His handwriting was familiar, but the words were those of a stranger, admitting the divorce, acknowledging therapy, and recognizing the entitlement issues that had driven him to conspire against us. He did not ask for forgiveness, but wanted me to know he understood why we had to walk away. I handed the letter to Elijah. What do you think? He sounds like someone trying to change, I said, but words are easy. And what do you want to do? Elijah asked. Nothing, I replied firmly. I want to continue living our life, and if he ever proves himself with real actions, perhaps reconsider, but if not, we will live beautifully without him. That afternoon, as Elijah worked in the garden, I wrote my own letter to myself, a declaration of independence from the guilt I had carried, forgiving myself for loving too much, trusting too much, and expecting unconditional family love, while celebrating the courage to act on truth and choose my own life. That night, preparing for sleep with a view of the mountains, Elijah asked, "Do you regret cutting him off completely?" "No," I answered without hesitation. "And me faking my death?" I asked, smiling. "It was dramatic but effective," Elijah laughed. "Definitely effective." Silence followed as we listened to the night in our new home. "You know the strangest thing?" I said. "What?" "I feel younger now than I did at 50, as if a weight I didn't even know I was carrying has been lifted." Elijah took my hand in the darkness. "That's what happens when you stop living for others and start living for yourself." This morning, I received a call from Brenda, our new neighbor. "Lena," she said, "a group of us are going to the farmer's market on Saturday, and then we thought we'd grab lunch at that new French cafe. Would you like to come?" "I'd love to," I replied without hesitation. A year ago, I would have had to consult Marcus and Kira, make sure they didn't need anything, and wonder if it was appropriate for a woman my age to go out with friends. Now, I simply say yes to the things that make me happy. As I write these lines, sitting on my porch with a cup of tea and the sound of Elijah whistling while watering his roses, I realize this is the first time in decades I feel completely free from guilt, free from expectations, free from the need to justify my decisions to people who never had my best interests at heart. Marcus was right about one thing. Elijah and I probably won't live many more years, but the years we have left will be ours lived on our terms, surrounded by people who love us unconditionally and without hidden agendas. And I have discovered that this freedom is worth more than any toxic family tie I may have lost in the process. Sometimes, the greatest freedom comes from having the courage to walk into the unknown, leaving behind even those you once loved most when that love became indistinguishable from harm. Tonight, I will sleep soundly for the first time in 2 years, knowing that tomorrow I will wake up to a life that is completely mine. Did you like my story? If you listened till the end, drop a 1 in the comments. If you enjoyed it, Support me by liking the video and sending a small tip. I've got many other life stories like this on my channel, so make sure to subscribe and check them out. I've added 2 new stories on screen that everyone loves. Thanks for being here. See you in the next one.